Let's move you to the Results and Operations Center in Midrand now, where colleague Chriselda Lewis is on standby to just make sense of it all, to try crunch the numbers for us as she continues in discussion with Dr. Dale McKinley. Chriselda, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Golisi. And certainly those numbers will be crunched only once those polling stations close on Wednesday. That, of course, being the big day that we're all looking to, where millions of South Africans will go out to vote. But for today, this is where we start, basically broadcasting from the Results Operations Center. Just take a look at the studio. Our team's going to show you exactly what we've put together here for this all-important election. And this is where it's all going to happen over the next couple of days. It's going to be a hive of activity here, certainly. And at the end of it all, at the Results Operations Center here, that's where the final result, where I'm standing, is right where the final result will come from. Of course, what you'd know is that if we take a look towards this particular direction, I'm going to ask my colleague to please come towards this direction. Usually, this is where you have those press conference updates that you'll get from the IEC about, how far they are in terms of the counting. Of course, this is way after the polls have closed themselves. And that national ballot, as you can see there, this big screen in front of us, all of that at zero at this particular time. But it's going to get very interesting to watch once you see those numbers changing and who's going to do well, who's not going to do well in this particular election. If we take a look towards my right here, you'd see this is where political parties will be seated. Very transparent process. There's been a lot of praise for the way that South Africa handles its election, the levels of transparency. This is where the political parties will be sitting to monitor what's going to be on that leaderboard. So it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of days what is all going to unfold. And we've got an incredible set that we've put together here. Not just the set, but our team that we've brought out, our presenters as well as our reporters that are covering every single part of the country. It's really going to be incredible over the next couple of days. And the SABC certainly has you covered with regard to that. Not much we can speak about now, with the special votes, of course, taking place tomorrow as well as Tuesday. We're really looking forward to what the outcome of all of this will be at the end of the day. We'll get a sense of basically how ready we are once, of course, we have this process itself starting. I want to bring in Dr. McKinley as well. We were chatting a bit earlier on about a number of things, but of course still reflecting on whether we'll actually see, some young leadership emerge, out of this election. Will we see a change perhaps in more younger leaders coming to the fore?
I think we will at the second tier. I think what we have is we have very recognizable names at the head of all the parties. We know them, we know who they are. They generally tend to be middle-aged or older men. Yeah. But underneath that, there is quite a lot of younger people that are coming up in every party. Rise Mzansi, for example, seems to have a very, very vibrant youth component to it. I think you've seen in the ANC Youth League, many voices are coming up, younger people are becoming MPs, and you've seen it even in the older parties like the IFP. So yes, I think what we're seeing is this is probably the election where a generational change is beginning to happen. I would say it's the first step, though, yeah.
When we look at the policies of these political parties, have we seen, it's very different when they're doing door-to-door, have we seen them change, or is there a difference? You put forward the policies, yes, the manifesto's there, but doing door-to-door is something totally different. Are we seeing those policies being, or they're changing their tune basically?
Well, I think that they're basically honing their tune. Okay. So when you go door to door, people want to know, what are you going to do for me? Sure. Am I going to get the house? Am I going to get electricity? Am I going to get water? Am I going to get a job? And I think that's where most of the parties are speaking to those basic. If you listen to Julius Malema yesterday at the rally, if you listen to Cyril Ramaphosa, they're speaking to the basics. Because now all of the bigger picture things, I think, are are in the background, and people want to know when they're talking to politicians, they want to feel as though they have their interests at heart. And so a good politician will speak to those interests, and I think most of our politicians are fairly seasoned, and they're beginning to hone in on that message, because that's what's going to make people vote for one party or another, really, is the fundamental basics of economics and inclusion.
Yeah. What is not being spoken about much is how the international community is looking at South Africa's election. Yes, our main allies, our trading partners, but how are they looking at this election from an economic perspective and even politically?
Well, I think politically, let's start with the last one. I think politically, most of them are fascinated by the fact that the ANC might lose its majority. I think this is the key thing. This has been very predictable for 30 years, and all of a sudden it's unpredictable. So if you're a foreign country that's got big trade relations, or if you're thinking South Africa's geostrategically important, you're thinking, well, what's going to happen? Will there be new interests? Will there be new people we have to deal with? So I think in that context, politically, there's a lot of unpredictability out there, and people are wondering what's going to happen. I think on the economic front, they're less concerned, because if you look at the fundamentals of most of the big parties, there's not a huge difference in most of their. I think the EFF might be an outlier in that regard in terms of its nationalization program. But if you look at the fundamentals, so the continuity on the economic side, I would say, would be greater. The political uncertainty of who comes in, I think, is greater on the international side. And I think people are asking the same questions we are asking as South Africans.
In terms of the messaging of, in particular, these younger or newer political parties, do you see, in terms of their messaging, their support probably waning, or them actually making progress in terms of how they fare in this election?
Well, if you look at the last elections, we have a lot more parties. I think if you look at what I call the second or third tier of parties, they're doing okay in the context. I mean, let's be honest, the Patriotic Alliance, whatever we might think of it, has gained quite a bit of support in particular constituencies. Action SA in the last provincial and in the last local elections gained quite a lot of support in Gauteng. Rise Mzansi in Gauteng. So I think what you're going to get is you're going to get a bit of difference between what is at the national and what is at the provincial level. But yes, the smaller political parties are making headway. The question is whether they're going to get 8%, 6%, 5%, 4%, whatever it is. But if you look back to the 94 elections, it was basically a 2-3-way race, and everybody else was going to get very minimal. That's changed, and that's what's exciting and I think interesting about these elections.
Dr. Dale McKinley, thank you very much, especially for waking up so early to be with us. Thank you very much. Sure. We will be chatting, of course, in the days to come. Very interesting to see what's going to come out of this board.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Dale McKinley, political analyst. Let's take you a little bit around here. And everything looks about set to start. And we're expecting in this week it to be incredibly full here. It usually is. Incredibly full. You see broadcasters also having set up everything, for this election. It's going to be a very interesting time. And Mxolisi, I think, with looking at the voter turnout, what we're expecting there, that's going to be very, very interesting to watch, because recall in 2019, as I already indicated, there'd been some concerns about, the voter turnout. That was like 66%, yes. And there were people who just chose not to participate in the election, I guess for a number of reasons, which we dissected at the time, about voter apathy. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how this particular election does fare. And in particular in, some of the areas, young people, one of the areas that we're also certainly watching how they will participate in this particular election. So it seems to be all systems go from where we are here. Today was just about looking at or wrapping up what we've seen from these political parties over the past couple of months, what they've put forward, trying to get those voters to vote for them come tomorrow and Tuesday for the special votes, of course, and of course for the big day on Wednesday, when the millions of South Africans, of course, will go out and cast their ballots. So it's going to be incredibly interesting. And here at the Results Centre, we'll chat to you again a little bit later on. And we're expecting it to get incredibly busy here, Mxolisi. You'll also be here, of course.
Chriselda Lewis watching developments for us there. Thank you ever so much for always keeping us updated.